Hello, listeners. Mark here with another edition of SLP Shorts. This is the one where I'll be talking to the writer, Gavin Willacy, about his superb book, No Helmets Required, which follows the story of the American All-Stars. We'll talk a little bit about the characters from the book, what you can expect to get from this fantastic read, and then we talk a little bit about expansion to the USA in general, both in the past and the present, and potentially the future. Just before we get to my chat with Gavin, where you might notice some ambient background noise from the hotel bar we were set up in, I just wanted to let you know that this is going to be the first of hopefully quite a few off-season SLP shorts. We will be doing a show recapping the 2018 Sloppies. That's our annual listener awards show, along with our dream team that you've all voted for over the next few weeks. And then we'll start to look at team by team how they got on in 2018 and maybe a little bit of what to look forward to for them in 2019. If you want to be involved in any of those episodes, please do get in touch. But for now, please enjoy the chat that I had with Gavin about his superb book. On this edition, I'm speaking to writer Gavin Willacy about his excellent book, No Helmets Required, which is now available in paperback edition. We love a good book plug on SLP, particularly in the build-up to Christmas. Welcome to the show, Gavin.
Thank you very much. Good to be on, Mark.
Obviously, this book's been out a while, but this year the paperback version came out. So your book, it tells the remarkable story of the American All-Stars touring Rugby League side that went on a grueling and often chaotic tour of Australia and New Zealand in 1953. So tell us, first of all, how the book came about and how the research process to put it together came about.
Well, the book came about through reading an article by Professor Collins in a long-lost magazine called Our Game. I don't know if you remember Our Game.
No.
No? Well, it was a bit of a precursor to 4020. Anyway, Tony did a piece about this tour, and I thought this is just a bizarre story. I needed to find out more about it. It's just too strange to leave it at a two-page article about these Americans from college who went to Australia and played against lots of the best teams in the world. So I was always interested in American rugby league history, or rather international obscure rugby league history. So when I went on a trip to America for 3 months, and like a bit of a sabbatical after being made redundant once, and used the money to go on a trip with my wife, and we toured the States. And when I was out there, I researched it literally going into libraries in obscure Floridian towns and around all the way down the East Coast. And by the time we ended up in California, I was so enthralled by this story, I thought I need to actually see if I can find one of these players and track them down to interview them. So I chose the one with the most unusual name, Gary Kikorian. Googled him, found out he died a few months earlier, and but managed to get his family's phone number. I can remember now standing at one of those phone boxes in American films on the side of the street, putting my dime in or whatever it was.
Luckily no one called you and told you to stay in the phone box.
There was a good story about that actually. Only a few nights earlier I picked up a phone in LA and tried to ring someone and didn't get any reception, and then someone came along and tapped me on the shoulder, and I was on a film set, and I'd walked on and picked up a phone that wasn't connected to anything. Only in LA. Anyway, so the Kikorians answered. It was the son, and I said, "Can I come and see you?" He said, "Yeah, come up tomorrow." Met me in a tennis club bar, thinking this weirdo might, I don't want to invite this nutcase round our house. Then he was convinced that I was genuine, and we went round to his mum's house, and she showed me pictures of the All-Stars that they had above the mantelpiece, and told me all about Gary Kikorian, and from then on, that was it. The snowball was rolling. Getting bigger and bigger.
Were you the first person that ever went to ask about this?
Yes, no one had ever asked them about it. No one had talked to them about it outside of their group of friends.
Wow. And
what was wonderful was that they'd kept together the group. Gary went to Stanford University and was friends with a whole group of the players from there, because there was a group from USC, so University of Southern California in LA, and a group from Stanford, and then a few others from like UCLA and places like that, and they all kept together and had reunions about every 10 years or so. So she was Mrs. Kikorian, I forget her first name, Joyce, that's right, so well done. Joyce said, oh well, here's Al Kirkland's number, here's Vince Jones's number, and I rang them, they put me in touch with other people. And I spent Super Bowl 2003 driving through Oakland, who were in the Super Bowl at the time, to meet Vince Jones, and he'd switched off the Super Bowl to tell me all about the American All-Stars tour.
That's amazing. Well, I don't want to give too much away about how the tour ends up, really, because it's a story that deserves to be read in full for the people listening and go out and buy your book. But I do want to touch on some of the characters from the book, characters that I think would make it a great movie if you just kind of picked out a small amount of the group, and these are the guys that stood out for me.
That's the plan.
So let's start with Mike Dimitro, who's the man who put it all together, the Maverick Mike, the Big Mike, Iron Mike, whatever they call it. Lots of nicknames the man seemed to have. Lots of names, actually, the man seemed to have.
He did have a lot of names, yeah. He liked changing his name quite a lot. If you took sort of Eric Perez times Maurice Lindsay times...
With a touch of Alan Sanford in there.
Alan Sanford, yes. Yeah, we'll go with Alan Sanford, yeah. And take away the internet and being able to find out about people. So if somebody told you something from the other side of the world, you pretty much had to believe them and take their word for it. He used that to his advantage. And yeah, he was basically a retired American football player, as in had stopped playing after college, where he was a star at UCLA, became a teacher. Didn't seem a very appropriate teacher. I think in this day and age might not have passed the necessary
fit and proper person.
the
DBS check.
DBS and safeguarding element of that. Probably would have failed the fit and proper director's tests as well. But and yet he ended up running this whole tour because he'd seen Rugby League played in Sydney during the war, and he was looking for something to fill this huge gap in his life, this sporting gap and the buzz and the adulation and the adventure and the potential from an entrepreneurial point of view to make some money out of sport.
Of course, yeah.
So bizarrely, he told the Australian and New Zealand and British Rugby League authorities that he had a team. Could he come and tour? Australia said yes. So he then had to get a team because it was complete nonsense. He didn't have anyone. Miraculously, he managed to find one.
So, I mean, that he could probably have a movie all about just himself and not even involve have this just as one act.
In my mind, and hopefully in fruition eventually, we'll have Russell Crowe will be Mike Dimitro in the movie, and he'll be the lead character, and or maybe who's the other guy? Hugh Jackman, maybe Hugh Jackman, and as you say, some of these main characters will be the cast, and the others will be in the background.
Well, you said much of the team was drawn from Stanford University's gridiron and rugby union teams of the early 50s. The names from that, like Jack Binetti, Al D. Kirkland, Pat Henry, Vince Jones, and Gary Kikorian, who we just talked about. Kikorian's possibly the most famous name to come out of the experience, just because he was the only person I'd heard of when I opened the book, and that was a name that stood out as one I'd read about previously. So tell us a little bit about his sporting life.
Well, Kikorian he was from LA, actually. He was from Inglewood, near the airport, and he'd done very well in college and went off to the NFL and played for Pittsburgh, for the Steelers, hence why you've heard of him. As a backup quarterback in 52, he played 10 games. I only remember that because I've just looked it up. He played 10 games in a dreadful team that actually ended up having, I think, 4 Hall of Famers in it. Got cut at the end of his first season, went from job to job, like selling second-hand cars, I think, at one point. So the summer of 53, or May time 53, he really didn't have anything to do, and word got around that there was this guy, this strange chap in LA who was trying to recruit rugby players, as it was, to go on this tour of the States, and a tour of Australia. So Krikorian was mates with these other Stanford guys, and I don't know, I can't remember who was invited first, but suddenly there were 6 or 7 of them, and they were on board. So yeah, Krikorian was one of the most successful sportsmen in the group, and certainly was afterwards as well. I don't know if you would maybe mention that now, that he basically left the tour at the end of the Australia leg because he'd been drafted by the Baltimore Colts and came back and ended up there for about 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
So another high calibre athlete, because there was quite a lot actually of people who had some athletic career behind them, collegiate careers mostly, but another one who was a high calibre athlete on the tour, an Olympian I think, was Bill Albans, who was the winger. What's his interesting background, and also what nickname did he earn on the tour that I guess referenced quite a lot in the book?
Wild Bill was what they called him. That was only sort of the formal on the record version. When I spoke to some of the players, because I was lucky enough to meet I think 6 or 7 of the players, maybe a bit more. They all laugh about Bill and say that he was an absolute lunatic. I call him Bill Albans because I'm from St Albans, and that's how we pronounce it. But I don't know whether I think they pronounce it Albans. But he'd won a medal at the previous Olympics.
Yeah, the Helsinki Games,
the year before, 52. So the idea of the reason they were called the American All-Stars was a genuine reason, that they were going to all be stars from different sports brought together and taught to play rugby league. However, he hadn't told them that. They didn't even know, they'd never heard of rugby league. They just thought they were going to play rugby, and rugby was what they'd played at college, some of them, whether they were an American footballer or a decathlete like Bill Albans, a sprinter, a shot putter, went on one of the trips, and it was only when they got to Sydney that he said, there's something I haven't told you, gentlemen. We're not playing 15 aside with line-outs and rucks and mauls. We're playing this thing called Rugby League. And got Clive Churchill to show them what to do.
I mean, it's a good teacher.
Learn from the top. Yeah.
So the rest of the playing group was mostly pulled from the universities of Southern California. The likes of George Kaufman, Al Abadjian, is it?
Al Abadjian, who died earlier this year.
Sol Naumu and Ted Grossman, they're all interesting characters in the story, but another one from that path was Al E. Kirkland. There was Al D and Al E. Al E. Kirkland. Tell us more about him and his rugby league journey, because he continued in the game after the tour.
So, without spoiling too much of it, it's quite sad because he was the only one to keep playing. But he was the star. He was among the stars. Like Krikorian was fantastic. Grossman and Demerjian were great players as well. By the reports, the same names are picked out all the time. But Ali Kirkland was a centre. And as you say, there was Al D. Kirkland. It's absolutely bonkers, isn't it? Two people with the same name on a trip. It's not like they were like Ron Smith or something. But Al E. impressed enough that when he'd gone back home to California and had clearly thought, I need to keep playing this game, and reached out to the different teams in the Sydney, New South Wales Premiership. I don't know, but I guess he must have had some contacts left over from maybe kept in touch with people, and basically Parramatta signed him up when they joined the league, so they were like an expansion team. They had a terrible season. I think they won one game, but he played every match in that season, and then he went to Leeds Played for Leeds, scored on his debut for the A team at Headingley, scored on his debut for the first team, set up by Lewis Jones, and then the RFL said, "Oh well, have you got a work permit?"